Chapter 7, The Killer. Izuku sat in his class going over his notes on quirks. He was attempting to find a proper working combination of traits to merge together into a stone. Maybe the telekinesis combined with the water molecule manipulation from the hydrokinesis, then earth manipulation with the conversion quirk to work on all types of earth-even metals, and then throw in a bunch of amplifier quirks too. Midoriya. The teacher called, interrupting his train of thought. Yes, Izuku said with a slight hiss of annoyance. Why don't you answer the equation on the board if you're not too busy? The teacher said slyly, knowing he wasn't paying attention. 42, Izuku said without even looking at the board. I'm sorry, that's incorrect, the man chuckled with a smug look on his face. It's actually 45, but you were close. The other students laughed as the supposed genius getting it wrong. No, 42, Izuku argued. He stood up from his desk and walked to the front of the class. Ignoring the teacher's order to sit back down, the green-haired boy grabbed a marker and wrote 42 on the board. That's the answer. You said 45, but the only way to make it 45 is to do this. Izuku wiped away a few numbers and symbols, replacing them with different ones. There, now the answer can be 45. He smirked as he emphasized it by underlining the new answer. You're the teacher, so please do your job correctly, Izuku said as he returned to his desk, while the man looked over the textbook, paling slightly as he realized that he wrote the equation the wrong way. That's right. Thank you, Midoriya, the teacher said through gritted teeth at being shown up by a brat in his own class. The other students even turned their laughter on him as the bell rang, signaling the end of the lesson. All right, class dismissed. Turn in your assignments on Monday. Finally, Izuku sighed as he put away his notes. He most hated classes here, since he was already ahead of the lessons, yet he still had to regularly attend. Unfortunately, it cut into his work with the league and his lab time was significantly reduced. Grabbing his bag, he walked out the room, ignoring the glare from the incompetent teacher. Seriously, this was supposed to be one of the best non-hero academies in the country. Get better teachers. Glare all you want. I'm used to it, one of the things he learned from middle school. Stop giving a damn what people thought of him. He didn't have any friends this school, but this time around he didn't care. It wouldn't matter anyway once his device was finished. Speaking of which, Izuku had made a few breakthroughs with that. The space stone was coming along nicely. Izuku acquired a sample of Kurogiri's blood upon his request. The man at first was a bit reluctant, but a suggestion from Sensei changed his tune. Using a complex scanner that he built, he was able to isolate the quirk factors in the genetic code and remove the different facets of the man, then combine them together. With Kurogiri's warping quirk as the core, he subtracted the mist conversion, added the flash warp quirk, and then multiplied it with 4 enhancer quirks. Now Izuku nearly had an all-powerful quirk ready to be forged into a stone. There was just something missing that he didn't have yet. A hero that had a very interesting quirk named Rock Lock. A power that let him lock objects in a point in space. Izuku wanted a sample of his blood to add his quirk to the space stone. Luckily, he already had a plan in motion to get it. The time stone was being difficult. No matter how many enhancer quirks he added to the genetics, it just fell apart in the computer simulation over and over again. Something vital Izuku had yet to understand was needed for that one. The reality stone was currently the bane of the teen's existence. Izuku thought that it would be simple. Just combine a bunch of telekinesis and matter manipulation quirks together, then slap on a bunch of amplifiers. Not so easy, it turns out. Every time he tried to generate it in the computer using his formula, it fell apart no matter what combination he used. He came close with one, but it crumbled due to the strain it would put on the body. Maybe a quirk that could make matter weightless would take away the strain. That girl at UA. Achako Eureka was her name. She had an anti-gravity quirk. Izuku thought back to his reviewing of the footage he captured during the USJ attack, plus the recorded footage of the sports festival he saved. Of all the students, that girl was the only one whose quirk could be useful to him. If only he could get a blood sample. Plus, Izuku really liked the way she stood up to Katsuki Bakuga in her match during the festival, something his pathetic old self could never do. She would make a very good hero in the future. There were a few more students that interested him though. Tenai, a boy with a quirk that gave him engines in his legs, allowing him incredible speed. Izuku didn't get much data on him due to the fact that it was this student that left the facility to go inform the UA faculty. Then there was his humiliating defeat at the hands of a girl using a bunch of self-made gadgets during the festival. Technically he won because she surrendered, but Izuku knew it was his loss, because Hatsune easily could have beaten him but chose not to. Tenai had some good traits and the potential to be a true hero. The type of hero that Izuku wanted to create. Then there was Shoto Todoroki. This guy nearly had Izuku drooling at how magnificent his quirk was. He did a little research after the sports festival. It turns out he was the son of the number 2 hero Endeavor. Not only that, but he possessed both an ice and a fire quirk. Why he didn't use his fire was beyond Izuku. Todoroki could have beat Bakugo in the final round of the sports festival if he used it, but he refused for some strange reason and only used the ice, causing him to lose and receive second place. The potential Shoto had though was practically limitless if he just used his other quirk. He could definitely be the number 1 hero one day, and Izuku planned to make sure of it once he reformed the current hero society. Adjusting the bag slung over his shoulder, Izuku made his way outside and headed towards the mechanics building. This was the only course he enjoyed. An elective where he got to put his talents for inventing things to use. The teacher was also a man who had a lot of connections in the support companies that design and build gadgets for heroes and sometimes police. Izuku tried his best to be as friendly to him as possible while making sure he was the best student in the class. He had heard there would be summer internships at certain support companies coming up for only the top students. What better way to get inside the hero system than to infiltrate its gadget suppliers? The green-haired teen realized a while ago that there was only so far the League of Villains could get him. Eventually he was going to need power and resources that they couldn't provide him if he ever wanted to finish the Infinity Gauntlet. That's why Izuku wanted to get into one of these support companies. They could unknowingly give him all he needed to complete the project. Ah, Midoriya. Mr. Kinzoku exclaimed, seeing his favorite student walk into the workshop. Kinzoku-sensei. Izuku smiled brightly at the tall blue-haired man. The teacher had a very interesting quirk. He could bond different metals together, combining the various traits of them together. Unfortunately he was limited to only 2 metals at most and couldn't bond more than that. What are you working on today? The teacher asked, approaching the boy's work table. Well, I just finished my portable force field generator. Actually, he made this months ago. It was one of his first gadgets that he created for his work as a villain, but Mr. Kinzoku didn't need to know that. Izuku showed him the small metal disc-shaped device with a button in the center. Try to hit me, the teacher did as he was asked and attempted to lightly smack his student. Midoriya simply pushed the button and activated the barrier, causing the hand to stop halfway as it hit a light blue barrier. That's very impressive, Midoriya, Kinzoku said while rubbing his sore hand. Yeah, but it can only take so much force before it fries the power source, Izuku sighed. It didn't matter to him though, since he carried around multiple versions of the force field generator if that were to happen. No, I mean it. For a first-year student to come up with such ingenious designs and inventions is quite an accomplishment, the teacher smiled proudly. Especially considering the fact that you're quirkler. I'm so sorry, Kinzoku apologized for his momentary verbal slip-up. It's alright sir, you can say aloud that I'm quirkless. It's not exactly a racial slur, it should be though, especially with how the word is used in this day and age. I've long since accepted that I was born with nothing that makes me special like everyone else. I'll have to work hard to be special and recognized by society as more than just a quirkless person. That's why I want to work for a support company, so I can be a hero by making things that help heroes. Izuku lied straight through his smiling teeth. People always said he had an honest smile, why not use it? That's a very mature thing of you to say, if only he knew. The rest of the workshop class was mostly uneventful, with only a minor incident where Mr. Kinzoku accidentally cut his hand on a sharp piece of metal. An accident that no one in the room realized Izuku purposely caused. He liked the man, but he was very accident-prone in class, hence the multiple first aid kits around the workspace. Being the good student he was, Izuku quickly grabbed the bandages and gauze to help the teacher. Once he was bandaged up, the boy discreetly placed the blood-covered gauze in a sterile Ziploc bag, which he quickly pocketed. The potential of Mr. Kinzoku's quirk was too good to pass up. After class, Izuku spent a few hours in the gym before going back to his dorm room. Flopping down on his bed, he sighed as he checked his phone for messages. Kirajiri left him text to head towards the Academy's sports supply closet, one of several locations that they designated as good warping spots. The bartender also mentioned in his message the need to hurry as there was a potential new recruit coming to the bar this evening. Grabbing his bag again, he made sure he'd add the DNA sample he procured earlier from his teacher to bring to the lab later. Quietly Izuku snuck out and over to the indoor track stadium, where the sports supply closet was located. Once he was inside, Izuku made sure he wasn't followed, then sent a reply message to Kirajiri, and a minute later a warp gate opened in front of him. As soon as he stepped through, he was already being chewed out by Shigaraki. "What took you so long?" Tamura glared at him through the fingers of his hand mask. "Some of us have school, Tamura-san," Izuku said with mild cheek as he placed his bag by the bar counter and made himself comfortable on one of the stools. He was still dressed in his school uniform with his face fully exposed and not in his villain costume, but it didn't matter anymore. Sensei had already worked out his true identity, and Shigaraki as well as Kirajiri admitted that they didn't care who he really was. Probably because they were using aliases like him. "The hero killer will be here soon. Whether or not he agrees to join us, I want your analysis on him," Tamura explained while he sat in the armchair. "So sit there, keep your mouth shut and don't do anything but observe." "Okay," Izuku agreed, then took a sip of the soda that Kirajiri quietly left for him. As soon as it finally registered who would be coming, he spit his drink out. "Wait. The hero killer is coming here? The hero killer Stain is going to be here? You're trying to recruit the hero killer Stain? What did I say about keeping your mouth shut?" Tamura's chair nearly disintegrated with how hard he was gripping the arm. "Sorry," the green-haired boy apologized and went back to sipping his drink, all the while thinking, "This won't go well." It wasn't even a logical conclusion, it was just a feeling he had in his gut. Yes, Izuku knew about Stain. He had been following his work ever since he heard about him back when he was working for small groups in the underground. Izuku was a bit afraid of the man due to his line of work, but he was a fan of the message he was trying to spread. No more fake heroes. It was very similar to his own goal. However, Stain just wanted to eliminate the fakes by killing them. In contrast, Izuku wanted to create true heroes and simply banish all the fakes. "He's here," Tamura said. As soon as the portal appeared in the bar, Izuku noticed the monitor screen came on, signaling that Sensei was listening in. Out of the warp gate stepped a tall, muscular but tall man, clearly dressed for combat with all the knives and swords strapped to his person. "So you're the hero killer," Tamura said as he stood up to greet their guest. "So you're the League of Villains." Stain's eyes went around the room, from Shigaraki, then Kirajiri behind the bar, and finally stopping at Izuku. A brief moment of confusion crossed his features, probably from his agent's school uniform if Izuku had to guess, before quickly leaving as his gaze returned to Tamura. It was in that brief moment that Izuku felt dread wash over him. This man was a different kind of monster and had a very different dark aura than Sensei. "Let me be frank, we'd like to extend an invitation to join us," Shigaraki began. "Join you?" Stain glared at him. "And why should I do that? What exactly is your goal?" "Our goal is very simple. I want to kill All Might and bring an end to the society that worships him." Tamura smirked behind his hand mask. How childish, Izuku thought as he watched the whole interaction. He already knew Tamura's goals and he found them foolish and immature, lacking any sort of cause or purpose. How childish, Stain spat back at him. "What's the point of killing without a cause?" the murderer said as he pulled out one of his swords. "Master." Kirajiri looked to the monitor screen with concern. "Let them continue," All for One ordered. An experienced and infamous villain such as Stain will only inspire Tamura to grow and mature. "This is bad," Izuku urged as Stain moved with almost inhumane speed, knocking Tamura Shigaraki to the floor and stabbing him through the shoulder with his sword. Kirajiri attempted to aid him only to get stabbed in the arm by a well-thrown dagger. The blade was then yanked out by a tether that Stain attached to it, bringing it back to his hand so he could lick the blood and render the mist-covered bartender paralyzed. This all happened in the span of a few seconds. Izuku quietly stood up from his stool in an attempt to either flee or help. Stain turned and locked eyes with him, not saying a word, but the message was clear to him. Don't move. The League of Villains didn't even pay him, so he wasn't about to fight the hero killer for them, thus the boy gladly complied. "I hate people like you." Stain went back to glaring at Shigaraki, lacking any conviction. "Kirajiri, send him away." Tamura shouted out desperately. "I can't." Kirajiri's mist shook but was unable to shift or expand. "His quirk seems to be paralyzing me." His voice sounded strained. Izuku quietly began piecing together the hero killer's quirk from what little he had witnessed so far. It seemed like he could paralyze people by tasting their blood. "Without conviction or cause you won't survive." Stain attempted to bring his dagger down on Shigaraki's neck, but the other grabbed it with his free hand, disintegrating it in seconds. "Conviction, huh?" Shigaraki said as he stood back up. The hero killer to a short leap away. "What a load of crap." He snarled. As if I'd need something like that. It seems our ideals oppose one another, Stain smirked. However, we both wish to bring down this broken hero society. Izuku's eyes widened. That was pretty much the same as his own goal. Words he himself believed in. Leave then, we don't need you, Tamura pointed at him. My business was done here anyway. With Kurogiri now free, he turned his glare back towards him. Return me to Hosu, there's still some false heroes I need to take care of. He licked his lips when he finished speaking. Once he was gone, Tamura finally spoke. TCH. And just when my wounds were finished healing, he said as he glanced at his bleeding shoulder. I'll show him. Sensei, I need some more namas. We have more of those things? Izuku realized. I'll let you have 3. All for one's voice said through the screen. Use them wisely, Tamura. If you're going to Hosu, may I come along? Izuku asked politely. Of course you may. Sensei allowed him to go with Shigaraki, appreciating the boy's politeness. Thank you, Sensei. Izuku bowed towards the monitor respectfully. Shigaraki glared at the boy's back. Sometimes that friendly nature of his really got on the villain's nerves. That night. Now then, Mr. Stain, where are you? Izuku said as he walked through the dark alleys of Hosu City. He was ignoring all the chaos happening in the distance. Tamura brought a few namas to wreak havoc on the city in an effort to upstage the hero killer. Luckily for the green-haired boy, that was just the distraction he needed. Activating the scouter, he pushed the button which increased the range of the scanner at the cost of detecting the level of power the quirked individual possessed. Izuku smiled under his face mask as he spotted 3 signatures a short beat away far from the populace. Who's he killing? Approaching the alley with what little stealth skills he had, Izuku poked his head around the corner. His green eyes spotted Stain about to murder, not some false hero, but in fact a UA student that he was interested in. Tenai Ida was about to die. That was something Izuku couldn't allow. Stain was about to stab and finish the boy off for good, but his instincts told him to dodge. So he did, jumping in time to avoid the energy pulse beam that passed the spot he just occupied. I thought you only took down false heroes, Izuku said, coming out of the shadows to stand next to where Ida lay. Attacking a student? You should be ashamed. Who the hell are you? Stain asked the interloper. Oh? So now you want to know who I am, the young villain said with mirth. Back at the hideout you just glared at me without saying a word. Stain suddenly realized who this was, thinking back to what happened a few hours ago in that bar. You're that plain-looking boy in the school uniform that was with the League of Villains, the hero killer stated. He was completely unrecognizable now with that form-fitting body armor and whited hooded coat. My name is Apotheosis, pleasure to meet you, Stain. Izuku introduced himself with a short bow. Tenai's eyes widened as he lay paralyzed on the ground. This was the villain that attacked Bakugo during the USJ incident. Well, you're certainly more polite than that Shigaraki brat, Stain commented. Now step aside so I can deal with that child. Yet I'm afraid I can't do that. As soon as the words left Izuku's mouth, the sword came bearing down on him. Good thing all that training he did recently upped his reaction time, allowing him to activate his force field generator. The hero killer's sword bounced right off the barrier. Really? Did you think a kid like me wouldn't have some sort of defense? How do you think I survive working with the League of Villains? Why are you protecting me? Tenai asked, still unable to move. Good question, Tenai Ida, Izuku said, looking down at the team that included in his energy shield. I've been watching you both during the USJ attack and the sports festival. I find you interesting and I think you'd make a great hero. That child doesn't deserve to be a hero. Stain attempted to slash at Izuku again, but the barrier still held. He came here for revenge. His brother, yes, I heard about what you did to Ingenium, Izuku stated. But here's something you don't understand, Stain. Tenai here is not a hero, he's a student. Stain stopped mid-attack when he said that. He's just a student, he doesn't even have a provisional license yet. Killing him doesn't exactly fit your modus operandi. He's a selfish child who doesn't deserve to be a hero, Stain corrected. Yes, but think how this would make you look, Izuku argued back. The man who only kills false heroes now murders innocent students. You may not agree, but in the eyes of the media that's what it will look like. They will make him into a martyr and that will forever tarnish your message. Stain paused, starting to understand the boy's point. You'll just be another villain, Izuku smirked, seeing his words get under the killer's skin. He was able to figure out the most important thing to Stain was the message he was trying to spread to the world. No sooner than the words left his mouth, the killer's aura and murderous intent turned even more violent and dark. Izuku was shaking with fear and excitement. This was exactly what he wanted. You make an excellent point, Stain grinned. But what's it matter to you? Because Stain, I agree with you, Izuku explained. I too wish to put an end to this society's glorified fake heroes. The boy looked down. I can't stand it either. Those with flashy quirks running around thinking they deserve the spotlight as if they were some kind of celebrity. The point of being a hero is to be a hero. Fame and glory shouldn't be a factor. He stopped, realizing that he was going on one of his rants again. I didn't know, Stain looked him directly in the eyes, that there was someone out there who had the same thoughts as me. He chuckled. But I can't help but notice, you didn't answer my question. What's it matter to you whether or not I kill that child? Because while I do agree with your goal to put an end to all the fake heroes, it's not enough. Your plan is incomplete, your ideal's flawed. Izuku was probably crossing a line with the hero killer, but he wanted to make a point. My plan is to create a true hero. A hero that would put all the others to shame. And you wish to be that hero? Stain asked skeptically. Izuku burst out laughing at the man's question. Me a hero? Don't be a ridiculous. The boy giggled. I'm a villain, sir. There's no hope for me becoming a hero. However, in my research I've come to the conclusion that villains are the one that make heroes. That's insane. Tenaya spoke from his frozen position on the ground. Is it Tenaya? Izuku questioned, looking down at his captive. When quirks first appeared, it was villains who ruled everything, until some finally had enough of their tyranny and became the first heroes. Ida looked at him like he was a lunatic. Even the hero you all love so much, All Might, was created by the most powerful villain I've ever known. Both Stain and Tenaya's eyes widened at what he claimed. That was all accidental though. The villains didn't mean to create their polar opposites, but imagine this. Izuku gestured his hands about excitedly as he talked. Imagine a villain who knows all the right motivations to apply, who knows what a true hero should be. Imagine the hero he could purposely create. He let out a breath, feeling exhausted by his long-winded explanation. That's what I'm doing here. I'm protecting and nurturing someone who I think would eventually make one of these great heroes. Please don't kill him, Stain. I need Tenaya. He has the potential and room to grow. He's just young and has more to learn about being a hero. Izuku stood between the hero killer and the UA student. After a short, silent but tense pause, Stain finally spoke. I like you. The killer gave him a large, menacing grin that the boy figured was meant to be friendly. You have good convictions. Much better than that fool you worked for. Don't make fun of Tamura-san. He's still learning. We all are. Izuku defended his boss's apprentice. Shigaraki did have a place in his grand plan after all. He needed every ally he could get if he wanted to gain control over the hero society. Do I have your word you won't kill Tenaya? Alright, I'll leave this pet project of yours alone. Stain agreed to back off, then smirked when he remembered his target was still bleeding against the wall of the alley. What about him? The killer glared daggers at native who sat there still petrified in fear and pain. Not interested. Izuku turned away, not caring for the low-level hero, but mainly because he was still a bit squeamish to watching someone die. He risked his life for a student that he liked. He refused to do the same for someone who was already caught in Stain's crosshairs. A scream and a gross squelching sound later, and the deed was done. Tenaya grit his teeth and tried once again to get up, but failed. He had never felt so powerless before. Not only did he fail to get retribution for his brother, he also failed to save someone from a vicious murderer. As a token of my appreciation, take this. Izuku fished an envelope out of his white hooded cloak that he then tossed to Stain. Open it later when you're alone. Stain nodded at him, then leaped up the wall of the alley, disappearing into the night. Ha! Izuku fell on his behind. Man, that was terrifying, wasn't it? He said aloud. How did you try and fight that guy? The boy asked the downed Ida. Just talking to him made me shiver. You. Tenaya glared at him. What to do with you now? Izuku picked the teen up, slinging a limp arm over his shoulder. It seems Stain's quirk was still in effect. Don't worry, we'll get you some help, he said pleasantly. Why are you doing this? Tenaya asked. Didn't you hear what I said a minute ago? Izuku didn't even look at him. I'm trying to create real heroes and I see a lot of potential in you. They were quiet for a moment while the villain carried him out of the alley. Just what was going through your head when you decided to take on the hero killer anyway? I heard about your brother, but did you really think you could defeat someone who he failed to be? Once they were almost to the street, Izuku set him down, propping him up against the wall. What did you hope to accomplish? Ida looked away in shame. He didn't want to say. Yes? Look, don't think of me as a villain right now, Izuku said, squatting down to his level. I did just save your life, not just because of your potential, but I also like you. So think of me as a friend. Ida looked at him like he was crazy. Maybe he was if what he said he planned to do was anything to go by. I just don't know what to do with all this rage. Tenai grit his teeth furiously. All I want to do is find the hero killer and make him suffer for what he did to Tensei. What do I do with this pain? Izuku sighed. He knew that feeling. I'll tell you what you do with that pain. The villain reached and grabbed the other's wrist. You hold it tight until it burns your hand and you look at the world and tell it no more. No one will ever have to feel this pain. Never again. Not on my watch. Izuku went through the same thing after everyone rejected his dream. He knew that once his ideal world was created, nobody would ever look down on him or the quirkless ever again. That's what a real hero would do. He let go of Tenai's wrist. Now take this whole experience as a lesson and apologize when the hero you intern under comes. Izuku scolded him while looking through the boy's pockets until he found his phone. Looking through the contacts until he found a number labeled Manuel. Wow, he has the hero's number. Tenai is very methodic. Izuku smiled under his mask at the convenience. I think that hydrokinesis quirk blood sample came from him pressing the call button. He waited a moment while checking his power glove. Hello Ida. Where are you? Manuel spoke with concern. Sorry, Ida is injured and paralyzed right now, Izuku said into the phone, cheerful, while Ida watched with concern at what this villain was up to. He could be luring the pro hero into a trap if he wanted. He got into a tussle with the hero killer, but I was able to talk Stain out of killing him. Who is this? Manuel asked, growing more worried by the second. Forgive me for not introducing myself, he chuckled. My name is Apotheosis. I work for the League of Villains for now. Don't worry, I'm not part of this attack. What? I would advise you to start tracking this phone. Have a lovely night, Izuku said gleefully as he hung up. He could be quite devious when he wanted to be. Well, see you around Tenai Ida. I look forward to seeing how you grow from this. Tossing the phone on the student's lap, he waved him goodbye. Oh, just so you know, even if you go blab what I told Stain to the authorities and pro heroes, it won't make a difference. I'll have already won by the time they figure out who I am or what I'm up to. He locked eyes with Tenai to remind the team that he was still a villain and wouldn't let anything stop him from accomplishing his goal. Ta-ta. Izuku walked back into the alley and vanished into the dark shadows, allowing Tenai to release the breath that he was holding. Chapter 8, The First Stone. Lunchtime. Rocklock looked up from his hospital bed, wincing as he put himself in a sitting position. A nasty reminder of his injuries. The weird thing about it was that the villains he fought knew exactly how to fight him, as if someone gave him all information on how his quirk worked. Here you are, the young man said excitedly while handing him his hospital food. This one was shorter than the last orderly who gave him his meal. He wore the same scrubs, apron, medical cap and surgical mask like the last one though. Thanks. He took a bite from the tray of freshly cooked noodles. He noticed the orderly was still standing there watching him eat. What are you still doing here? Oh me. The boy pointed at himself. I'm just waiting for the drug to take effect. What? Rocklock passed out, falling face first in his lunch. That drug, Izuku smirked, sliding down the surgical mask. Gently lifting up the pro hero's head, he let it rest against his pillow, making sure he was indeed unconscious. Once he was sure, the young villain took out a small syringe from his blood extracting kit he kept on hand. It was a bit of a hassle to use his connections and money to hire a small group of villains to put this hero in the hospital. He gave them strict orders not to kill Rocklock, along with a detailed strategy on how to fight him. Once he read the news article about the pro hero being in the hospital, it was a simple matter of finding out which one. Infiltrated as an orderly that brought food to patients, and he'd be given easy access to the man's room. Thank you for your donation, Izuku said as he extracted a vial's worth of blood from the pro hero. Once he was finished, he put the surgical mask back on and left the room quietly. He looked to the security guards stationed outside the door. He's sleeping. We'll send someone with more food later. The guards nodded their heads, not seeing anything suspicious at all. Izuku smiled as he left the hospital, one blood sample richer. UA. Faculty meeting room. We ran the name Apotheosis through our informants. Detective Naomasa began in front of the UA staff. Also, some criminals we captured told of him during interrogations. He took out his notes. He's a kid, from what we were able to gather, about the same age as your first-year students. He started out working with groups of small-time villains. None of them ever saw his face, and nobody knows what his quirk is either. That's not much to go on, Shouda Aizawa stated. But we have a motive behind him now, Snipe spoke up. From what Ida told us from his encounter, this boy seems to be under the delusion that he can create a true hero. Yes, we figured that. Naomasa flipped through his notes, suddenly remembering something. Due to the boy's supposed genius that the villains praised about, we came to a theory that he might have an intelligence-enhancing quirk like yourself, Nizu. That's very concerning indeed, the small white animal said. A brilliant mind being used for evil. Do you think that's why he's mentally unstable? Possibly, the detective frowned. But what I still don't understand is why someone like him with goals similar to the hero killer would join up with the League of Villains. The doors to the meeting room suddenly opened, revealing Toshinori aka All Might in his true form. Sorry I'm late, I went to speak with Ida, the skinny skeleton of a man said as he sat down in the next available chair. And how is he enjoying his detention? Aizawa asked with a cross tone. Tenai was given a month of detention for that little stunt he pulled with the hero killer in Hosu. His punishment should have been worse, but during the incident the student acquired valuable information about Stain and Apotheosis, so he was given a lighter sentence. Well, he's certainly remorseful and feels ashamed by his actions if that's what you're asking, Toshinori said. He did ask something that concerns me a bit. And what did he ask you? Nizu questioned. It's nothing. I'm sure it's nothing, Toshinori dismissed. It was actually something that Apotheosis kid told Ida. How he claimed that All Might was indirectly created by a villain. He must have been referring to All for One. Which means that man is definitely behind the League of Villains. But what really concerned him was the fact that man told another villain how the quirk One for All worked. That was bad and only reminded how he needed to find a successor to pass the power on to soon. I think we're blowing this out of proportion, Aizawa announced. He's just a kid, it doesn't matter what he thinks he can do. He'd be stopped if he tried, no matter what his quirk is. If you say so, Detective Naomasa said. We'll get him when we finally track down the League anyway, easier said than done. All they had on the League was 3 known members at large, no real names, and no faces to identify. Oh! The detective shouted, suddenly startling everyone. Stain mentioned in front of Ida that he saw Apotheosis earlier wearing a school uniform, so that's something. Do you know how many schools there are in the country? Midnight said with an air of sarcasm. Yes, but he's probably a first-year student, so if you look through each school. If we can find a student that has a quirk similar to Apotheosis, Toshinori said. Then we'll finally have a lead. Aizawa finished that line of thought. I'll inform the boys at the office to look for a first-year student with any intelligence-based quirks and/or energy manipulation, the detective explained. The UA faculty nodded, sounded like a decent plan. League of Villains. What'd I miss? Izuku asked as a glass shattered against the wall across from him. Not much, Kirajiri said while he used his warp quirk to clean up the mess. Tamura had been throwing random temper tantrums ever since the attack on Hosu. It seems the media was more interested in Stain than him and focused more on that man's killings than the League's terrorism. Do we have any new recruits yet? The team questioned. Not at the moment, the bartender admitted. We have Jiren currently working on that, Izuku sighed in disappointment. It seems the League of Villains was getting nowhere fast right now. If it continued to stagnate like this, he'd probably end up leaving them behind. Another glass was shattered against the wall as soon as the news reporters on the television mentioned the words hero killer. If you could do something about this, I'd be eternally grateful, Kirajiri pleaded. Izuku glanced from Tamura to Kirajiri with worried eyes. Alright, Izuku smiled and went over to the boss's apprentice. Tamura-san, let's go get lunch. Shigaraki turned his venomous glare at him. Why would I do that? The older boy snarled. Because you could use some fresh air away from all the newscast and I'll give you my current analysis on Stain. Izuku smiled up at him. Fine, but you're buying. Tamura agreed and removed the hand mask from his face since they'd be going out in public. 1 hour later they were walking through a mall dressed like civilians. At least Izuku was dressed like a normal civilian with a pair of dark green pants and a form-fitting All Might t-shirt. Shigaraki was dressed in all black with his hood up. Stop staring at me, Tamura fumed. I'm sorry. I've just never seen your face before, Izuku apologized. Have you considered chapstick? That wasn't a joke, it was a legitimate question. If you ever ask me that again I'll turn you to dust, Shigaraki threatened. Okay, Izuku sighed. Do you have to wear his merchandise? Tamura said while starring daggers at his All Might shirt. I'm blending in better than you though, Izuku smirked as they strolled through the mall. No one would look twice at a kid wearing an All Might tee, but a guy dressed in a black hoodie in the middle of the day looks a bit suspicious, he said with an air of arrogance. Just shut up and find us a place to eat. After their short argument, they found a fast food joint, ordered something and found a booth with nobody around it to eavesdrop on their conversation. "Well, what's your analysis on Stain?" Tamura finally asked while nibbling on some fries. "I got up close and personal with him during that Hosu attack, and I was able to figure out his quirk allows him to paralyze people when he licks their blood." Izuku put his half-eaten burger down while he went off on all the practical uses for this quirk. A very useful quirk in the hands of a serial killer. "I'm not interested in that," Tamura hissed. "I want to know why everyone's so focused on him." "Focused how?" The green-haired teen didn't see the problem here. "So what if Stain was popular now? Villains come and go, just like heroes. After everything I've done, the attack on UA, my attack on Hosu, it was all just swept under the rug by the hero killer." Tamura raged as he disintegrated one of his fries. "Why not use that to your advantage?" Izuku questioned. "The media thought the hero killer was connected to them anyway. Use Stain's influence and message to bring more villains to the league." "I don't want that," the older villain shouted. "Stain is undermining everything I did and what I stand for." "What do you stand for?" Izuku suddenly asked him. "Seriously, I don't understand what it is you want or wish to accomplish." "How can you not know?" Tamura snapped at him. "You don't have a creed like Stain, you don't seem to have a purpose or goal. You say you want to kill All Might just because you don't like him," Izuku went on. "Why though?" That actually made Shigaraki pause and think about it for once. Why did he want to kill All Might? What was it that he hated about the man so much? When you come up with an answer, maybe then you can start to be the leader that Sensei is trying to help you become. And with that, Izuku stood up and left the restaurant to let All For One's protege think. If his words didn't finally get through Tamura Shigaraki's immature mind, then nothing would. He needed to start thinking for himself anyway, since Izuku wouldn't be around much longer. As he walked through the mall, the green-haired teen spotted a rather interesting sight. One of his targets that he had yet to retrieve a blood sample from. A Chako Urarika wandering around the mall seemingly alone. What luck. Izuku slowly walked towards her while pretending to be looking elsewhere. "Hey, aren't you that girl from the UA Sports Festival?" "No, doesn't sound right." "Hey, I know you." "Nope, sounds kind of creepy." "You look familiar." "Oh, you're from the sports festival." "Yeah, go with that one." As he was about to pass Urarika, he stopped and took a good look at her. "You look familiar," Izuku said, getting her attention. "Oh, you're from the sports festival." The girl blushed, not used to getting recognized out in public. Yeah, that was me," she chuckled while smiling brightly. "A Chako Urarika." "I thought so. You went up against Katsuki Bakugao." Izuku remembered that battle well. "You did great." "I lost though," Chako said sadly. "Oh, I don't think you did. You stood up to Bakugao." "I think that's pretty heroic," he smiled at her. "Anyone who stands up to that guy is a hero to me." "Do you know Bakugao?" she asked. "Yeah, I went to middle school with him." Izuku looked away bashfully. "He used to bully me for being quirkless." "Really? That's terrible," Achako exclaimed. She knew that Katsuki was a hot-headed jerk, but she didn't know he was that kind of monster. Picking on the people weaker than you is not heroic at all. "It's fine, we ended going to different high schools, so I'm free of him." Izuku smirked internally as he played his sympathy cards right. The two of them found a bench to sit down in the mall and started talking. Izuku acted like the nerdy school kid, a performance that he used to live in. He asked her things about UA, what the classes were like, but mostly about what All Might was like as teacher. Achako lightly teased him for being an All Might fanboy based off his shirt and obsessive interest in the #1 hero. Not once was she suspicious of his act. To her he seemed like a sweet and honest boy, plain looking, but kind of cute. Achako could definitely tell that he worked out with how his shirt seemed to cling to his muscled torso. Shaking the thoughts from her head, she asked him to repeat his question, hoping he didn't notice her flushed face. "I said, why do you wish to become a hero?" Izuku repeated. Something he wanted to know before he extracted what he needed from her. He slipped a hand in his pocket and palmed a small chloroform spraying device. He planned to lure Chako to a more private area, knock her out and get a blood sample. "Well, this is going to sound a bit selfish, but I'm doing it for the money." She had the decency to look ashamed. "And how does that make you any different than glory-seeking assholes like Bakuga?" Izuku thought to himself with disgust, hiding it behind his cheery smile. "Well, it is the most lucrative profession in this day and age," he said as he tightened his grip on the gas dispenser in his pocket. "I just want my parents to have an easier life." Achako smiled sadly. That made Izuku pause. My parents have a construction company that's failing because of other companies having people with quirks better suited for the job. She held her fist in front of her. So I want to be a hero so I can use the money I earn for my parents. That changes things. He let go of the device in his pocket and smiled a real genuine smile. I think that's a very noble and heroic thing to do. Izuku placed a hand on her shoulder. I have to go now. Good luck with your goal. He stood up to leave. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, Ochako suddenly said. Oh, I'm Izuku Midoriya. It was nice to meet you. He waved at her. I hope to see you again, Izuku. She smiled at him. Oh, I think we will. Izuku smiled back. Indeed they would meet again. Perhaps on opposite sides of the battlefield. As Izuku walked away, he mentally added Ochako Uraraka to his list of potential true heroes for his new society right next to Tenaida. She'll be great. The next day. Let's begin. Izuku grinned as he faced the forge. A big spherical-shaped machine with pipes and pistons running along the outside of it. He was able to hack into the city's power grid to give him the necessary energy to complete the process. The machine was basically a giant engine that used his formula to literally forge a stone into existence with the desired quirks built into it. The substance used was something Izuku invented that he called mortal resin, a synthesized organic liquid that would be hardened into a solid crystallized object, harder than the toughest diamonds. Please work. The boy pushed the button on the control panel to activate the process. This was the moment of truth. He'd find out if his theory and scientific formula was correct. The forge roared and bellowed as steam and sparks burst from every vent. Izuku took several steps back, wondering if the machine would explode. Unfortunately his worries were correct, as after 5 minutes fire and smoke exploded from out the sides, obliterating the mechanisms inside. Izuku shielded himself from blast as half of his lab was nearly destroyed. However, the small compartment next to the control panel opened and there sat a small round metal capsule. Sparks rained around Izuku as he slowly approached. Reaching out with his gloved hands, he gently picked up the metal orb. Giving it a turn, he removed the top half and was captivated by a blue light. With Kirajiri's warp gate power, the flash warp quirk, and several enhancing and amplify quirks, Rocklock's quirk lockdown was combined with the conversion quirk. Now instead of being only able to lock a non-living object in space, the quirk could get both. Another quirk went into this stone courtesy of All for One. A failed experimental Nomu possessed a quirk called Epidermal Shield. A power that covered the skin in an invisible protective barrier that was far from impenetrable, but could be focused in a specific area of the body at the cost of lessening it the other areas. Unfortunately the Nomu lacked the intelligence to use it to its full capability, so Sensei offered the creature's blood to Izuku along with the blood of other various failed Namas. All of these wonderful quirks were combined together and the end result was a small blue glowing stone the size of a walnut resting comfortably in Izuku's hand. The Space Stone, he dubbed as he smiled down at the first of his infinity stones. Izuku let out a chuckle that evolved into triumphant laughter. It works. It works. He cheered. It destroyed the forge to do it and caused a city-wide blackout, but it worked. All his hard work and complex math finally paid off. Now if only I had a gauntlet to put it on, he would soon know when he finished the next stone. Chapter 9, The Deal. What is this? All for One asked. He had brought Izuku to him again to discuss his progress, and after the conversation the boy presented him with a box. When he opened it appeared to be some sort of metal mask, the front of which resembled a crude skull with tubes attached to the back. It's a special helmet I made. Basically it's like a portable life support machine you can wear, Izuku explained, showing his invention off. I wanted to thank you for believing in me, sir, so I made this device so you could leave this room if you want, for up to an hour at least. He really wanted to help the first person to have faith in him. Even though he was a villain, he looked up to All for One. I should be the one giving you gifts, Sensei smiled. I don't know what you said to Tamura a while ago, but it seems he's finally growing and thinking for himself. Yes, I'm glad to see him properly motivated too. Izuku was happy mainly because Shigaraki didn't really need him much anymore to help plan things out. He was doing it all himself, which left Izuku more free time in his lab. Which was good because he had to rebuild the forge after it blew up, creating the Space Stone. Are you sure you won't reconsider me giving you a quirk? All for One repeated the offer he gave the boy when they first met. It's a very generous offer, Sensei. The old me would have jumped at the chance, but I still have to decline. The boy smiled gratefully. I want to prove my point to the world that quirks aren't as special or great that everyone makes them out to be. When I defeat All Might, I want him to look me in the eyes and know that a quirkless kid that he deemed worthless like the rest of society beat him." Sensei chuckled at that. The kid was going to make a wonderful villain in the future. "As you wish." All for One took the mask from the box and placed on the table by his side. "It might come in use later." "Good luck with your internship, Izuku," the boy flinched at, but quickly remembered that the man knew almost all about him, including what went on at his school. "Thank you, sir." Izuku bowed politely and left through the open portal. New Sudafu City next day. "Here we go." Plastering a smile on his face, Izuku straightened the tie of his dark green suit. Today was the first day of his internship at Geonosis Tech, a large company that made support items for heroes, but most notably they were the ones that built battle robots and drones for hero school training. Apparently the villain bots used in the UA entrance exam and sports festival were designed and built here. First they wanted to see a portfolio of his designs, then a demonstration of the devices he built so far. After that they would decide what they wanted to do with Izuku during the internship. According to his teacher Kinzoku, he was the youngest student accepted into this company. They would either have him do basic grunt work, or if they were impressed, more advanced stuff. Walking past the large outdoor fountain, Izuku approached the glass door of the tall building of Geonosis Tech carrying a metal briefcase. When he entered, he ignored the extravagant lobby area and walked over to the front desk. "May I help you?" the man behind the desk. "Izuku Midoriya. I'm here for the internship." He smiled pleasantly. "Ah yes, right this way." The man escorted Izuku to the elevator. While they were going up, the escort tried to engage the boy in conversation. "Are you happy to get an internship in the second largest hero support company?" "Indeed I am. Very happy, in fact." This was the gateway to achieving his ultimate goal. The League of Villains resources were starting to run dry for him. Plus Izuku needed another location to work on his Infinity Stones. If he could gain the company's approval and trust, then he would have it. The elevator opened and the two stepped out. The escort led him to the research and development department where the presentation would take place. Izuku breathed in and out as he prepared to act his way into Geonosis Tech. Compared to what the company normally produced, he knew that his devices should more than impress. Later that night. "So how do you intend to change things?" Stain asked. They were both sitting on a rooftop in northern New Sudafu City waiting for the target to arrive. In the envelope that Izuku gave him, he offered him information on fake heroes he planned to eliminate in exchange for letting the boy tag along with him when he killed them. The first one they took down was the magnet hero Magnetron. Izuku helped Stain lure him to an area devoid of any metal, and the man killed the hero with a thick plastic yet sharpened to a point sword that the boy made for him. The second was the crystal hero Mosaic Man, a flashy hero that loved to show off. The man had a quirk that let him manipulate and create glass. It was a simple matter of chasing him down into an underground tunnel, where the least amount of glass could be used, and Stain cut him down like an animal. "Well, let's just say I'm currently building a weapon." Izuku began taking a sip of his drink. "A weapon that will make me the most powerful person in the world." "More powerful than All Might?" the hero killer questioned skeptically. "Definitely more powerful than All Might," Izuku confirmed. "So powerful that everyone would have to do as I wished, and any who don't conform to my standards of being hero, well, they'll be retired." He said that word retired very ominously. "You have guts, kid," Stain grinned. "I like this plan. It's so simple yet brilliant." "Oh, look at that, our target's coming," Izuku remarked, looking through his binoculars. Lo and behold, flying through the night sky, Christopher Skyline, aka Captain Celebrity. An American hero who moved to Japan because of some trouble he got into back in his home country. A very arrogant man that only cared for his popularity. A prime target for the hero killer. Unfortunately, his quirk flight would make him difficult to catch. "Time to start the show," Stain grinned as he grabbed Izuku by the collar of his shirt and pinned him to a wall behind them. "Here I go." Izuku cleared his throat and started screaming as loudly as possible. "Please don't kill me," he cried, letting tears fall down his face. "Time to die, scum." Stain placed his blade against the boy's throat. "Halt, villain." Like they predicted, Christopher Skyline appeared levitating over the building above them. Diving in with a quick smack, he knocked Stain away and grabbed the boy hovering with him out of harm's way. "Thank you so much. He was trying to kill me," Izuku sobbed while thanking his savior. "Not a problem, child," Christopher spoke in very poor Japanese. "You must be the hero killer, Stain. Picking on young children now." The killer just grinned, seeing the kid's plan come together in front of him. Suddenly the American hero felt a stabbing pain in his side. which was appropriate since he just got stabbed there. Izuku freed himself from the hero's hold and leaped safely back onto the top of the building while Captain Celebrity clutched his bleeding wound. Would you care to do the honors? Izuku smiled as he handed the blood-covered dagger to Stain. With pleasure, the killer took the small blade and licked up a single drop of the crimson liquid. Christopher didn't understand what was going on until his body suddenly became paralyzed. Unfortunately, with his body frozen, he lost control of his quirk and went plummeting down the side of the building. Bye-bye. Izuku waved as he went straight down. Can you believe that scum got away with sexual misconduct by fleeing to Japan? He said as he approached the edge to look where the body landed. It was 15-story fall, so he was either dead or his career would be over with. Definitely dead. Looks like he landed rather awkwardly. He made a face of disgust. Good riddance, Stain spat while handing the dagger back to his partner as per the agreement. Izuku thanked him and wiped the excess blood off the blade, placing the rag in a Ziploc bag for later. The quirk flight would be useful to him, hence why he was here helping Stain. Well, this was fun, but I'm afraid we need to depart for a while, Izuku told him. I got to get to work on my weapon, so I won't have time to do much villain work. Do you really think you can change anything with this weapon of yours? Stain wasn't asking with complete honesty this time, giving him a serious face. Not only will I change the world, but I'll do it with the least amount of violence and bloodshed, Izuku promised him. Now that's impossible, the killer chuckled at the kid's naive promise. Are you a betting man, Stain-san? Izuku inquired. I only gamble with my life, Stain said. How about this? I bet you that I can defeat and end the career of the number 2 hero Endeavor without killing or crippling him, Izuku offered. If I can do that, would you agree to come work for me? Without killing or crippling Endeavor? You think you can end him? Stain didn't sound like he thought that was possible. If it was easy, then it wouldn't be a challenge, Izuku smirked at him. Giving it some thought, Stain decided to agree to this bet. What do I get if you can't do it? The hero killer asked. All my notes and analysis on any and every hero you want. He had an encyclopedic collection of notes on heroes. With that information, Stain would become an even greater and more effective hero hunter. You've got yourself a deal, Stain said. He had seen the boy's intellect firsthand and would love to pick his brain for information on more fake heroes. See you at the finish line then. Izuku pressed a button on his wrist device and a portal opened behind him. It looked similar to Kirajiri's warp gate, but this one was different. Firstly, it wasn't made of dark mist and it appeared to be held open by some sort of blue electric-like energy. He waved goodbye to Stain as he stepped through the portal. When he arrived in his lab, he frowned seeing the device he attached, the space stone, exploding in sparks. It seems his calculations were correct. The stone only worked with a living organism. Any device that tried to force the power out would explode. All that power needed a living body to let the energy flow into. At least I know it works now, Izuku sighed as he removed the stone from the destroyed machine and placed it safely in the small vault he created to protect it until he could build the infinity gauntlet. After that, he took the sample of Christopher Skyline's blood and placed it in the DNA analyzer. Izuku then took a seat at his computer and began typing away. He was only interested in the maneuverability of levitation that the recently deceased hero's quirk possessed. Izuku was hoping it would make a good substitute to Achako's zero-gravity quirk for the reality stone, since he missed his opportunity to get it that time at the mall. He liked her hero spirit too much to physically attack her in public just to get a blood sample. Putting the quirk genetics together in the computer simulation was becoming more and more frustrating. Especially for the reality stone. He kept putting together telekinetic quirks and matter manipulation quirks together, but it still always fell apart in the computer no matter which way he built it. There had to be some way to balance it out. On the plus side, if he added Kinzoku's metal bonding quirk, then he could use the reality stone to generate a new type of metal that would be perfect for the gauntlet. Sadly, the solution still eluded him. The time stone too. He always came really close with it, but it still fell apart in the genetic simulation. Sensei gave him an interesting idea on whose quirk he should use for the power stone, but getting a sample might be a bit difficult. So that one was on hold for now. The soul stone was also a mystery, but he did have one quirk in mind. It's just that getting a sample is unthinkable at the moment. If it was easy, then it wouldn't be a challenge. Izuku needed more DNA to work with if he was going to make more infinity stones. Thanks for listening. Original work in the description.